Ecology and colony. Ecology and colony, a landscape farmer's testament to mankind's new role for its own survival, by Mister.Weirds. In ecology, you must understand that ecosystem is both a fragile and a contradictory sense robust thing. For example, the devil's hole pupfish have evolved a niche lifestyle and a niche ecosystem in the middle of a watering hole in the Mojave Desert, surviving there against a myriad of times of near death and extinction. Including the time a drunkard or two stumbled in and vomited. But the ecosystem's fragility can also be seen every time a new species is introduced and becomes invasive, choking out an environment before it can respond in time, like that of kudzu or snakehead. Time, that is the key. Everything takes time these days. And evolution and adaptation are the oldest examples. Just as Rome was not built in a day, it took centuries, if not millennia, for the barest hint of an ecosystem to be formed, and was the most fragile thing that, if disturbed and nudged in the slightest wrong way, could have prevented life altogether. Even now, as I sit watching grains of wild millet swaying in the wind, I want to be feasted upon by passing flocks of quail, who also occasionally ascending deeper into the brush for picking of dung beetles to feed off the refuse the birds drop at the base of the large trees, cultivating the most general tree populations from back on Earth to be the tallest they could, while still being slow to produce too much young saplings, so as not to cause too much of a high population. And they are inoculated to be bonded to colonies of truffle mycelium, or the birds then instead pick up the occasional worm burrowing underground, aerating, and turning the soil naturally, the soil that holds life together. This plant produces much in the way of food for the system, a diverse array of crops so as not to be too easily taxed, a mix of free-range truffles that have the whole vast sphere of the world to spread wherever there be a tree, and there be plenty of trees, one every 3 or 2 miles apart. Each spreads a network of symbiotic fungus, creating a network we can tap into to see if there's any trouble like drought or disease. This paired with plenty of free-flying quail for protein, creating a unique and stunning pastoral world of flying flocks and waving millet and tall trees, making the world a strange type of plain of Serengeti, dedicated to producing a variety of foods. We're not by any means the only world. There are a few ice moons turned vibrant artificial reefs, descending vertically from planted buoys on the water's surface, acting as artificial alcoves for corals of myriad hot pinks, vibrant yellows, and cobalt blues, or sporting lateral kelp forests, either bull kelp or some of the other of the myriad varieties, with a myriad of names I did not study due to it not being my chosen field of expertise. Among them sardines that are eaten by the tuna, while another has krill being feasted upon by a new whale species, minimally designed to host whole flowing kelp forests on their backs, without too much interference in their natural genome. And these kelp forests are fertilized by whale excrement as it exits out their derriere exit, if you will, which feeds the krill in a simple cycle where we take any excess kelp that the krill can't keep up with in their feedings for our own use. Another plant is a gas giant home to floating buoys covered in dazzling planters of the simplest but beautiful and fragrant flowers, and the insides contain apiaries that fed upon for the honey by both the man and myriad of floating jellyfish who convert the honey into methane, which it burns as part of its metabolic processes to float across the world. These are then feasted upon by flying lamprey-like creatures used in many constant and shifting winds and thermals to stay perpetually flying, soaring through the skies. These sometimes roost on a nesting house high above the apiaries, where they're out of the way of the feeding jellyfish to roost and relieve themselves, fertilizing the flowers. One thing you might notice that these systems are simple, and that is because they are. Ecology is a difficult science, not in the sense of pure mathematics. For if that were the case, I, with barely inclination towards calculus, couldn't have picked up this job up. Since the only math in this position is statistics that is required of me, though I do believe other roles do require things such as calculus. No, it's in the sense of variables. Some we can't control, others we can't even see, and others we didn't even know were there. That is why we have kept things slow and, more importantly, simple. As we study more and more, we can engineer more complex ecosystems. In fact, they're finalizing attempts to unveil an ecosystem with more than one prey and predator dynamic system in the next star system over. One even has a lofty and ambitious goal that's, well, how should I say, one scientist. He's attempting to generate a whole ecosystem that thrives and sustains itself from within the void of space, a void-born ecology, if you will. Another thing you'll see is that humankind is taking to an active role in these ecosystems so as to nurture them and be nurtured by them in turn. We learn from our mistakes, we learn that we cannot view ourselves as separate from the ecosystem while still profiting from its bounty. Perpetual motion and energy are not coming in the form of a machine, but a system that's self-contained and feeds back into itself. For anything else will then drain from that until it no longer moves, ceasing all motion, all energy, and eventually all of life. And humanity learned that the hard way, much to our eternal shame and chagrin. Therefore, we have taken to including ourselves as part of the ecosystems, cultivating and stewarding them to keep the flow of the way of life going for as long as the universe can last. Even now, to sit on the balcony of dirigible bioplastic and wood bred to be as hard as iron, raining fertilizer made from bone meal past quail harvests, returning to this world its ancestors of quail long past to renew the cycle more, with a bit of night soil mixed in. I mean a kelp candy bar infused with honey born of a gas giant. I listen to the rustling of millet, both wild and ranging across the whole world, the flocking and chirping of whole swaths of quail. And while I do so, I think to myself, what a wonderful world, born of life's imagination. I sing through a mouthful of kelp bar while I fly into the sunrise of another beautiful day.